Falcon and the Winter Soldier Episode 5 not only showed us Sam and Bucky growing closer as friends while fixing a boat and playing vibranium frisbee, but settled once and for all that the therapist Bucky needed all along was Sam. Maybe it's because of all they've been through together, or Bucky finally seeing the same thing in Sam that Steve did, but the metal-armed former assassin finally genuinely opened up and let Sam counsel the shit out of him. Bucky was there for Sam and his family, helping him with the boat and all, and they opened their home to him. It's gotta be the most non-homicidal human contact he's had since 1943. I think this is also the most growth we've gotten to see in Bucky since Steve sacrificed so much to help him in Captain America Civil War. Now, if both Bucky and Walker are traumatized soldiers, Bucky is the one making an effort here to take a good look at himself and heal. He gave the shield back to Sam rather than trying to take it as his own, despite having a much stronger personal attachment to it than Walker. Bucky is the one adhering to a personal rule not to hurt people. The contrast is just interesting to me. It's why one is a good guy and the other is a guy we constantly want to punch in the face. And it's clear Bucky's developing friendship with Sam is good for him. He actually smiles in this episode, more than once. They may bust each other's balls a bit, but they've got each other's back in a way that I think they didn't quite before. Bob, what are your thoughts about this burgeoning friendship and where Bucky is in his journey and how that compares to Walker? What do you think?
I think the scene that really brings it home is when they go to split up and they're like, "Okay, we're a team. We're partners. Well, maybe we're coworkers." Like they try use less and less and less personal terms to define their current relationship. Like they're not going to get all mushy and be like, "I love you, bro. I love you too, bro." We're not going to see that scene with those two.
Right, but that's just them, you know.
Yeah,
that's not, that doesn't mean that they're not on good terms or anything. It's just means that,
they're I think they're just the bonding they had with Bucky helping fix the boat, and Sam accepting Bucky to the point of, "Here, come stay with me and my family." And family is really important to Sam. If Sam had even the smallest shred of doubt about Bucky, he'd have been like, "Yeah, you should go get that hotel. See you later."
I would even say that the way that they're busting each other's balls is the evidence that they're growing closer.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Because that's like, that's the way that you deal with a guy friend of yours, basically. I mean, maybe not, that's not how everybody does it, but these guys, that's how they do it. That's definitely the kind of relationship that I've had with friends in my life. Maybe such as with yourself, you son of a bitch.
Perhaps.
But that kind of thing. And I also want to say, I got a real kick out of when Bucky was flirting with Sarah. That gave me some laughs. And from the shit-eating grin on Bucky's face after he does it the first time, that he knows that it's getting to Sam, and that's exactly why he's doing it.
Oh, yeah.
But also, I think there is one other reason that he is, kind of flirting with Sarah. And I think it has to do with the fact that, she knows who he is, and she doesn't care. She knows that he was the Winter Soldier or whatever, but to her, she's just Sam's friend, and she still smiles at him.
Yeah, and she still kicked him out with Sam. Bye.
Not impressed.
Yeah.
Get your ass out of here.
You and your robo arm, go do something else. I have to actually fix this, you two idiots.
Exactly. Think back to the date that Mr. Nakajima set him up with that girl from the bar or whatever, the bartender lady. It wasn't like they had a horrible date. I mean, it sort of ended awkwardly,
abruptly,
and abruptly. But she's asking them these questions. She's like, "Well, how old are you, anyways?" And he's like, 106, and she laughs, and he's like, takes a drink. And she asks him about his arm, why he wears his gloves, and he's like, poor circulation, which is not technically a lie, since he has zero circulation in that arm, it being made of vibranium.
And not veins. Yeah.
But it's that she would have had a reaction to the real full answers to those questions that would not have been strictly conducive to the date going well, right?
Right.
So I think that that's a deliberate contrast on the writer's part. At least I would think so. And it's also, you know, because it's like what Sam said. It's like when Bucky's like, all right, I guess I'll go get a hotel and, you know, see you later. And Sam's like, you really going to set me up like that, huh? And he's like, why don't you just sleep on my couch? And he says, it's like, look, these are some of the best people in the world. Like, they don't care if you got you know, an extra toe or, you know, this or that or the other. It's like, you know, they understand that you're a person. And I think that that was actually big for Bucky. You know, not necessarily in that moment, it being like hugely impactful and him being like, oh, like in that moment, but he hasn't been treated that way, I don't think. And like, I think if you look back, like they showed us very little of his like apartment or wherever he was living before, but like in the moments when we do see it, and he's like watching the TV of Walker, you know, having the shield, like being introduced to Captain America, it kind of looks like he's an apartment that like doesn't even have any furniture.
Yeah, it's like a one-room efficiency apartment with no furniture.
Yeah. So I like, and you know, in this episode, you know, we've got this shot of him like waking up and like the kids are playing with the shield and he gets like a smile out of it. And then he like goes to the ship and he's sort of standing there as the sun rises. That's definitely symbolic. Um, I mean, he's definitely turning this corner, right? And the stuff that he tells Sam, like particularly about admitting to the fact that he's having nightmares all the time and he's afraid that that means the Winter Soldier is, you know, still in him. Like that's exactly the stuff that he did not want to talk to Dr. What's-Her-Face about.
Right.
You know, because on the one hand, I think he recognizes the need to like work through these issues, but on the other hand, like she's hired by the government to go in there and, you know, probably keep tabs on him as much as it is to like counsel him, right? And so you could understand that, you know, in a way, you know, in addition to maybe him not being ready psychologically to like get into that, is like him having some reservations about like revealing that stuff to her, I guess. Am I going too far on a limb out here on this, Bob? Like,
Um, there's definitely more of Bucky opening up now than he did with his therapist. A lot of the interactions with the therapist were basically the therapist busting his chops, like, "Hey, you got to do your therapy, or you're going to go back to jail."
yeah, yeah,
And we see Bucky just more naturally open up, especially in the scene where, you know, he's talking to Sam and it's like, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on. This is why I busted your chops so hard when you gave up the shield."
mm-hmm. And it was real interesting what Sam told him about like, it's like you're not gonna like, you know, feel better trying to make amends the way you've been doing. And he says like you've been avenging, not amending, right? Because you have to be of service. It's not about you feeling better. It's about you making them feel better in terms of people that you wronged when you were the Winter Soldier. And I think the fact that through the course of this episode, Bucky had made himself of service and how that was good for his psychological well-being, I think it made Sam's advice resonate even more to him, right? And so I have this feeling that we're going to see him being of service to Mr. Nakajima early on, in either early on or like in the epilogue at the very end of the final episode next week. That's what I have a feeling of. But what did you get? Like, what did you get from this episode? Out of, you know, Bucky and like where he's at with his journey, because Sam is getting close, I think, at the end of this episode to, you know, completing his arc for the show. But like, what are your thoughts on like Bucky and what he's went through and where he's
think
at?
that Bucky is finally starting his journey. I think he was doing therapy because he was told to, like, do therapy or go back to the prison.
Yeah.
But he's finally turned a corner where he understands what he really has to do to heal. And he finally has started to really do that.
So he's finally kind of out of denial in a way, is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. He's putting forth the work for himself, not because he was told to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. For himself this time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, there have been moments in the show up to this point where, like think about that scene, that flashback to when Ao is helping him out in Wakanda, and she calls out the words, and he has this like breakthrough where it's like doesn't turn him into the Winter Soldier anymore. That was like, oh my god, like I feel like that guy deserves an award just for like acting in that scene alone. But I feel like this is kind of the most we've got from Bucky's journey so far in this particular episode. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see like what this means for him in the final episode, and where he goes with this and what he does with Mr. Nakajima. So, but we can talk about that more later.